Well, hi everybody. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Megan, the faithful fibromyalgia warrior, a carnivore Christian, and somebody who suffers with a lot less chronic pain and inflammation because I've been following a carnivore way of eating. Welcome. If it's your first time here, thank you. I'm so glad you decided to check out my video. And if you've been here before, thanks for coming back. I appreciate your support and your loyalty and your continued viewership. It means everything to me. So I have the house to myself this weekend. My husband and our older son, our 21-year-old, 22 a month from today, they are away in London at a heavy metal music festival that's happening over 3 different venues. And although I love some of the music, based on the bands that are going to be there this particular weekend, I don't know enough of them or like enough of them to make the cost of tickets worthwhile. Whereas my husband and my son, diehard fans, and they get a boys' weekend together, enjoying music that they both like. And I get the house to myself other than our dogs. Birdie, our completely insane spaniel, and Juno, our too human for his own good greyhound. I'm also going to be house sitting. We are dog sitting for our friends who, when we go away, they look after our dogs, and when they go away, which is always around this time of year, we look after their dog. So I'm going to have a spaniel, a greyhound, and a shih tzu in the house at the same time. But luckily, they've all met each other. They all get along just fine. But I suspect I'll have 2 furry little 4-legged bodies on the bed with me tonight and perhaps even tomorrow, because my husband and son won't be home till much later in the evening, as opposed to just the one. But other than that, I got the house to myself. And you know what? I don't know. I don't know if there's a bit of, so let me back up for a quick second. So for those who don't know, if you've not heard me mention it before, our older son has autism. However, he's fairly high functioning. He does need a little bit of instruction and repetitive guidance until he gets a routine down, and then he never forgets things. So we had to instruct him a few times on how to put dishes away when they come out of the dishwasher. Now every morning, other than today and tomorrow, and where it's just me and I won't need to run the dishwasher, but he gets up. He's always up around 10. He gets up and has his cereal. Then he empties the dishwasher, puts anything dirty away, puts in the dish tablet, and then that's it. And he does that every day for us. I feed the dogs in the morning because I get up with them first. I'm usually up between 6 and 7, and he feeds them at night, and that way they don't get. A couple of times I fed the dogs because he was out and I was here, and he forgot to check with me, and so the lucky dogs got 2 meals each that dinner, right? But other than that, I feed them in the mornings and he feeds them at night, and he walks them every day. Routines like that, you know. But he'll always say, hey, do you want me to feed them now? And but he asks it every day at 5:30. You know what I mean? So there's a few things, and it's more grasping sort of social cues and interactions that he needs a bit more help with. Yeah, so they have gone and they are doing that together. So they are off enjoying their weekend together. And so it's been kind of nice just to have the freedom. Meanwhile, I've got so many movies saved on Netflix and on Disney Plus that I haven't even started because I think, well, what if I can't finish it before they get back tomorrow night? You know what I mean? And plus, I don't want to be sitting down in front of the television all the time. So that's where I'm at. That's for those who don't know, that's what's going on in our lives. So he is hopefully going to be getting his a special supported job coach and consultant who will not only help him create a proper CV, but they're going to be working with him to learn how to do interviews. If he wants them there at the interview, just as support, he can have that. If he wants to go in by himself and have them wait, they'll do that too. They will also start with him at work when he finds work so that they'll know what he's supposed to be learning, and they'll help him so that even if he wants to work in a cafe, so even if his cafe work is quick and is a fast-paced cafe, he will get as slow of training as is necessary for him to learn what skills he has to and then become a bit more independent, which is amazing. So what was my point? I think my point was that it's great to see everybody, and I am so glad that you guys decided to come and swing by this channel. And I wasn't sure what I wanted to talk about. So as I said, my older son, my son who's almost 22, has autism. And our son who's 19, who's working in Canada right now as a cook, he has ADHD. He was diagnosed just before he left. It was around February this year. He was finally diagnosed with it. So they say that if children have things like ADHD or symptoms of, say, OCD or potentially autism or something under that large umbrella, that it could be that the parents may have some of the symptoms, even if they haven't been diagnosed. And while I don't believe I have ADHD, I do have a tendency to do spider webbing. Not my own term. I heard that from somebody else. And it's where I'll start with an idea up here, and then all of a sudden I'm over here, and then I'm down here, and then I'm connected over here. And if I'm lucky, it all comes back and makes a point here somewhere. I don't know if that's a female thing or if that's just me, but there's so many things I wanted to talk about today. I'm so excited about so many things. I am doing my own research into our anthropological history as a human species, which, by the way, as a Christian, does not contradict the Bible. And that's another topic I want to dig into, by the way, perhaps a separate video altogether, that we can accept Adam and Eve were created and also accept that God created our human ancestors that we've evolved from as a human species, not from other animals, but as a human species over 200,000 years ago. And the two actually coexist, and it does not deny the existence of God, and it does not negate the science that is clearly out there. In fact, the two go hand in hand. Maybe that'll be a good discussion for another time. But mostly I just wanted to talk about how grateful I am that I'm learning what I'm learning now in my life. As you'll see from my t-shirt, it says 80s. Now, I just happened to find this in a secondhand shop. Got it for £2. I loved it because why? Because I was a teenager in the 80s. I turned 13 in 1985, and I was 19 back in 1991. So for that period of time, when some of the best movies and definitely the best music came out. So I am a child of the 80s. And of course, all the great old Christmas ads and, the technology back then was like nothing like it is now, right? It seemed like it was so advanced at the time. I mean, I remember, I think it was around 1984, maybe 1985. And we were one of the very first families to have a home computer because they were unheard of. My father had a Hewlett-Packard 150 touch system computer. And basically you could, instead of typing out a command or using your mouse pad or your mouse, yeah, you could touch the screen at certain points to make some basic commands. And I mean, that was wow. Meanwhile, of course, we don't think about that today because that technology exists in every single phone, every tablet, every iPad, whatever you've got, that's there where you can swipe and tap and whatever, right? But back in 1985, oh my goodness, that was cutting edge. And while I am so glad I grew up then for cultural reasons, as far as, okay, some of the fashion was hideous. Let's just get that out of the way. Neon should never have been a thing, okay? And certainly not the way it was done. And I know people trying to make it a big comeback, calling it like neon brights, in a blouse, maybe a skirt, okay. But in head to toe, no, not a good look. It's not. I'm sorry, but just some stuff should not be like the whole acid washed, extra puffy bubble skirts. You guys who grew up at this time, you know what I'm talking about, right? But the 80s was also a time where we had so much wrong information. And here's what I mean by that. I've just been thinking about, as I've learned about carnivore, and I've learned about how the food guides are wrong. Ansel Keys was wrong. First of all, let me just say, the science behind Ansel Keys is he specialized in the physiology of fishes, not human beings. And yet, what he came up with as far as the things that we should eat, as far as cholesterol being bad for causing heart disease, is wrong. Completely wrong. And it's been debunked. The American Heart Association put a paper out in 2015 admitting that the research they had done previously was fraudulent. They lied. They took money from Big Sugar and agreed to lie and say that, in fact, unsaturated fats from animal meats and things like butter were the cause of heart disease, and that it was nothing to do with the fact that many of these people also were smokers and maybe didn't exercise very regularly and had lots of stress in their life, and also ate loads of grains and fruits and plants. That in fact, sugar was just empty calories. Because I remember growing up, we never had real butter in our house. It was always margarine. We always had salad. We always had things like couscous and tabbouleh and loads of pasta, loads of green salads, lots of, even Caesar salads, although the garlic didn't do well with me. Things that we were told was so good for us. And, when my father had his heart attack, and I think, if I remember right, I think it was like around 1987, maybe it was 1988. And he was told it was because of his hypercholesterolemia. I believe I'm saying that correct. In where his body naturally made too much LDL. Now, of course, now looking back with the knowledge we have now, that wouldn't have been an issue if his triglycerides had not been through the roof as a result of all the processed foods and all the sugar going into his system from fruit. We were big fruit eaters. We did not keep a lot of sweets in the house. We didn't keep sugared cereals in our house growing up. I mean, the sweetest we got was bran flakes with raisins. That was it. Or it was oats. It was oatmeal with berries, which were deemed, these are good for us. And of course, no, they aren't. Not long term. But they didn't take into account the fact that my father smoked a pipe basically every single day, that he had a stressful commute from where we lived in Waterloo, Ontario, for about an hour and a half into Toronto every day for the job he had at the University of Toronto. So we had a long commute there and back. He was on, up in the dark, came home in the dark. The fact that he smoked a pipe pretty much every single day, and had a stressful job, as well as a stressful commute, as well as stopping for coffee and a Danish almost every single morning. Those were the things that were the issues. You know, we know this now. Nobody knew that then. And I cannot get angry at the medical people then because they didn't know. I mean, when I was 5 in 1977, I believe that's when the very first basic food groups paper or promotion, I don't know what I'm trying to say here, sort of, yeah, accepted nutrition was put out by the US widespread. You know, what are the food groups? And as a Canadian, of course, with the US being our closest neighbor, we often would look to the US to see, well, what are they doing? And are we going to do something similar? Sometimes not. So when the US went to Vietnam, Canada didn't. But when the US came up with guides on what we should be eating, and this was after Ansel Keys, and this was after the Harvard professors who formed the American Heart Association agreed to a payoff and agreed to lie and accept money to say that sugar was good for us and it was saturated fat that was bad. And because the United States was known as such a big powerhouse, just in general, because of the vast, large population, Canada followed suit. And I remember in the 80s, there was this thing we did. I don't know if it was anywhere else in the world. It may have been in the States, but it was definitely in Canada, this thing called participation. And every school kid had to participate with some sort of action or activity. And you had Hal and Joanne Johnson, this couple. They did commercials about Hal and I are out going for an ice skate, or, you know, canoeing, sitting in a canoe and paddling. So every season, this couple was shown doing a different active activity to encourage people to move more, which was fine. But then they were also shown eating like whole wheat sandwiches, like whole wheat bread sandwiches, or pasta or fruit. And of course, as we now know, that did not help. That made everything so much worse. And of course, we had stuff at school where we would have to practice climbing up ropes for gym class, or practicing the long jump, or I think it was just egg and spoon race. What I think here in the UK would be your sports day, but it was done once a year. How many sit-ups can you do? How many jumping jacks can you do? How many times can you jump with a skip rope? So it was, and you know, the schools would tally up the minutes or the numbers, and you would try to see who had the best numbers of all the students in your school, or you might compete with other schools and you would get like a little ribbon or a certificate from the participation people in the government. What drives me crazy now is knowing the difference and knowing that, in fact, that stuff was wrong, is how hard it is to change people's minds. And I guess I wanted to put this out to say, look, I'm 50. If you didn't see my last video, I was just going on and talking about how amazing my birthday weekend was. I turned 50 on August 29th. And I don't feel like I think I should at 50. I feel healthier. I feel younger. I feel more energy. I still have fibromyalgia. I still have IBS. And my leaky gut is still healing. However, when I follow carnivore and I eat the meat and the egg yolks and I drink the water and an occasional cup of black coffee, I feel amazing. When I go off plan, I feel like garbage. It bungs me up, or I'm constantly in the bathroom going to the toilet. Sorry for the TMI, but that's just the reality. And you know, here I am able to reduce so much inflammation. You know, I struggled. I've shared this in other videos, but I struggled with eating disorder and primarily bulimia, but I wasn't anorexic at first. And then I found it too hard to constantly restrict. So I binged and purged instead. And that was me for over 30 years, for a really, really long time. And even at the beginning of going keto, I was still struggling with a lot of those emotions and a lot of the darkness around it, because even though I was losing weight and I was feeling less pain and less inflammation, I couldn't believe it was happening. I thought, oh, it's a trick. It's just gonna stop. And I panicked constantly. And then I realized, well, for one, I need to trust God here and start walking with him again. And I'm so glad I have been, especially over these last couple of years. It's been amazing. And I would not go back. And I know I had to struggle through things to appreciate what I have now. Unfortunately, that is life, right? We are not promised a trouble-free life. We are not promised a life without any struggles. But we do have the promise that there's always a way out. God always provides a way out if we're willing to listen, take the cues, and follow his path. And you know what? Honestly, God pointed me in the direction of keto, but then helped guide me towards carnivore to help me see that I can feel even better. It's not just about losing the weight. It was losing the brain fog, which is the biggest deal for me with my fibromyalgia. The chronic pain has dramatically reduced. I can even do a few modified push-ups, what do you call them? Yoga bridges, and some modified crunches, if you will, like, sit-ups, modified. Okay, I'm not sitting up and down constantly because I don't want to put injury against my lower back where I have a bulged disc. But I found a way to sort of get the same results doing it a slightly different way that does not put pressure there. And I never, ever, ever would have believed that was possible. 8 years ago, forget it. And even 2 years ago when I first started, no, I wouldn't have. I had to stop doing it all on my own and give it to God and let myself heal and trust that at the right time, things will get better. Does this mean I'm going to be coming off my medications? Not at this point, no. My thyroid was damaged enough that I do need to keep taking my levothyroxine. And that's okay, because between that and being carnivore, my thyroid has never been better. I do not struggle with suddenly having my weight go up and yo-yo everywhere from years of binging and purging, let alone the fact of having, fluoride in the water and just all that other stuff. My thyroid is actually functioning like it's supposed to, which I never thought would happen. I've been able to spend most of this summer without any need for my compression gloves on my fingers and wrists because my arthritis has been under control. When I went off a little bit on my birthday and allowed myself a bit of dessert, hey, it was my 50th. Now, should I have done it? Of course not. But it is what it is, right? I did notice almost instantly, though, my wrist started to ache. So that right there is a sign that when they say sugars of any kind are inflammatory, believe me when I say this is true. Because I forgot what that felt like, because I haven't had sugar in the form of either fruit or desserts in almost 2 years. And boy, did I feel it. And I just felt nauseous and gross and just blech. I didn't even really see my weight go up in any way. I didn't, I held on to a little bit of water weight for a few days, but it was just an overall yuck feeling and a bit of a headache, and the brain fog was back a little. That's how fast this stuff can affect us. And yet, who would have thought back in the 80s, oh, that sugar's just an empty calorie? It isn't. It's not. But I know it's a hard thing to come to understand. As I was thinking back on all the great things in my life, all the challenges and all the victories and all the the losses and everything I've learned in life, I know that everything has happened exactly the way it's supposed to have happened for a reason. And I think it's because I have found the way to get through this life as healthy and as pain-free as possible. Will I ever be fully pain-free? Probably not. Hey, if God has other plans, fantastic. I look forward to that. But if he doesn't, that's okay, because my pain is now managed so well that I can live with it. And I'm not, dying and desperate and feeling horrible because of it all the time. So that's where the science and those intelligent people who created, the pain medications, I'm grateful for them, because in this case, I do need that. I do need that extra help. The gabapentin to help with the neural signals to calm the pain signals to my body. Fantastic. The cocodamol that helps with the chronic pain in my lower back. Great. The sertraline for my anxiety, severe anxiety and depression. Of course, that's important. I hope that I will be able to reduce that amount of medication. But if I don't come off it fully, that's okay. I'm still healed. I still feel healing. I still feel so much better than I ever did before. And that never would have happened if I hadn't started keto and then found carnivore, and if I hadn't started walking back with God, because for me, those go hand in hand. I am so fascinated by how we've evolved as human beings, as a species, over the 200 and some thousand years, at least Homo sapiens sapiens. And of course, we had ancestors even before that. And for me, it's been so great because I'm seeing that I can believe in God and believe in science, and the two are not contradictory. They're not contraindicated. They go together. And, to me, it's so cool. I mean, I'm hoping I'll put out maybe a couple of videos that sort of help me explain what I find to be the truth. Now, I am no expert scholar, but I know how to research, I know how to Google, and I know who to YouTube. And, I'm so thankful for this world I live in. I'm so grateful for guys like Dr. Peter Ballerstedt, who is he's an agri-nutrition, I think it's an agri-nutrition, he's a seed agri-nutritionist. Oh no, sorry, he's a seed agronomist and a livestock nutritionist. And he has videos out there that prove that, in fact, farming, especially with ruminant animals, of which there are 200 different species of ruminant animals, they are not just cows and sheep. They actually help turn the soil and make it viable, and actually are benefiting of the earth. And in the States, if you don't believe me, watch his videos, look up his scientific papers that he references, because as it turns out, the gas, the farting and burping from cows, just cows, makes up 2% of the total greenhouse output in all of the United States. Meanwhile, the health sector, whether that's manufacturing of medications, building of hospitals and equipment and so on, the healthcare sector puts out 10% of greenhouse emissions. And I would expect the ratios here in the UK and Canada are probably similar. And as he also points out, not all animals. Okay, guys, so I know this is going to look a little bit disjointed, but I had a phone call come through just then. Yeah, so, I am so excited by all the things I'm learning now and all the things I'm finding out to be true. One of the things that Dr. Ballerstedt mentioned in a couple of his different videos, but the one I'm referring to is where he is interviewed by Dr. Anthony Chaffee on Dr. Chaffee's channel. So definitely check it out. There's some amazing and very interesting information there. But one of the things he said is like, just because all land is arable does not mean all land is good for agriculture. In other words, if people who say if we were to just grow plants, we would solve the issues of the world, that's not true. Because just because a land is supporting animals does not mean that land will then support plants that we can eat as humans. Because the plants that would typically grow where the animals are found, grasses and cereals and so on, are not things that people can actually eat anyways. Yeah, but having said that, so anyways, I just find that fascinating. I'm hoping to do a video just, yeah, yeah, I think I'm doing a couple of interesting um, research, my own personal research projects. I'm not any big shot. Who am I? Some doctor, somebody? No. But like I said, I know who are the smart people out there, such as Dr. Ballerstedt, and I'm fascinated by his information, and I tucked it all away in my brain. It's kind of like when you have a really you know something cool, you've got a cool surprise locked in your mind that you definitely want to share with everybody, and you know it's true. You know it is because you've looked it up and you're sure it's true, but then how do you get people to see it when you yourself are no expert, right? um or the research that has been done by Dr. Saldivar, for example, her studies of nutrition and how it's all wrong. Dr. Professor Bart Kay and his studies of nutrition and how he knows it's wrong and he has a science to back it up. Joey Schwartz, young man on YouTube who's supposed to be going off to UCLA this fall. I hope he does. Who has some incredible insights and knowledge based on what he's watched and what he's learned. But people don't want to take him seriously simply because he doesn't have the doctor behind his name. And then there are some out there, like Dr. Saladino, who did his residency, I believe, as a psychiatrist, never actually treated anybody as a psychiatrist, did no background studying in nutrition whatsoever, and claims that 300 grams of fruit a day or carbs a day is healthy, which is just ridiculous. Absolutely, completely ridiculous. But some people unfortunately do believe him because he's a doctor. But there we have it. You know what? It is what it is. I just hope first he stops calling himself Carnivore MD because he isn't one. But I hope that people will ignore the garbage he is spewing and listen to those who know what they're talking about, who are intelligent, who know the science, who know what's right, and who want us to have good health, who are not going to keep promulgating and promoting that plants is the way to go. I'm talking about Dr. Ken Berry. I'm talking about his wife Nisha, who's also an RN. Now, they may eat plants on occasion. I know she's more keto than carnivore. They're mostly meat-based. Their son is meat, a few berries, a few nuts, and that's fine. He's little. He can handle it. That's absolutely not a problem. Berries, if they're local and you're not eating them every day all the time, why not? Absolutely not a problem. To Sean Baker, who's very much just meat and water, that's what he does. Same with, Dr. Kiltz. He'll make his own ice cream, which I think is just basically heavy cream that he freezes. So it's cream that's iced, right? Iced cream, as it should be. But otherwise, he's basically mostly meat. Same with Professor Bart Kay. Same with Professor Ben Bickman, mostly meat and occasional little bits here and there. And you know what? That's fine. If your body can handle it and you don't react like mine does, go for it, please. I do miss fruit. I'm not going to eat it, but I do miss the taste of it sometimes because it was nice to have, raspberries in the summertime. But that's okay. You know what? Whatever's meant to be will be, and it's all good. But what I do want to say is this: I am thankful that I know what I know now, and I'm grateful for what I've been given. And just because I grew up in the 80s when red meat was bad for you and cholesterol was a death sentence and saturated fats were all wrong and everything like that, clearly that doesn't mean they are. It doesn't mean it's right. And so just as we've had to right those wrongs, and we're starting to now, hey, doesn't mean it's too late. It is never too late to get it right. Guys, thanks so much for watching. I hope this is encouraging. I hope this is helpful. I hope that you're doing well and having a great day. And I'll be back soon with more content. Please keep watching. Feel free to share this with anybody who you think it might be helpful for, or that, it might just encourage. Pass it along. That would be great. Feel free to subscribe. The more the merrier. And like I say, doesn't mean that my conditions are completely gone. They may never be gone, but are they starting to go into remission? Yeah, they are a bit. And even when they're not, they're still at a level that is manageable, which I never, ever, ever could have believed would ever happen. And yet here it has. So, carnivore, if you haven't tried it, what is there to lose except maybe some weight, inflammation, chronic pain? Why not, right? Might be worthwhile. Anyways, guys, thanks for your support and for watching, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Bye for now.